Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Denied by the Crossbar podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola is a serial winner, a record breaker, and to many, the best manager in the world ever. But not everyone agrees with that notion. Throughout his success, Guardiola has become a polarizing figure. Some consider his philosophies too predictable, repetitive, and ultimately boring. Today, we ask the question, has Pep Guardiola ruined football? Okay, so to discuss this topic, I've got Touchline Lee. How you doing, Lee? Okay?
Very good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Looking forward to this. We've both got our opinions, All right, let's get into it. So, Pep's possession-based style and positional play is a model for a lot of top clubs and academies. We agree?
Definitely.
It's spread all around the world. It's from Spain to Germany. And a lot of people, if I'm honest, it's not just has Pep ruined football. The question is, has Pep actually ruined an era of football? We're talking 10, 12 plus years from the beginning of that Barca time. How long has he been at Man City? 7 years now? So we're talking just below 14, 15 years, So it's a long period of time. As a result of that, a lot of people argue the game lost its variety, its unpredictability, and just its flamboyance and creative flair that we all enjoy, that gets us, gets us at the end of our seats when we're in the football ground or watching on TV. What do you think about that, Lee?
I see your point, because I think it's become too frequent now that it's not just Pep's Man City that we see playing this style, but it is other teams, and it can be so slow. It feels like you're watching two games of football in one. The time it takes to actually get a bit of a build-up and then get an attack for the ball to just be played back out to the edge of the box and recycle the possession, because that chance just wasn't there. And I think that Pep obviously has made this his thing, inspired by so many other managers before Pep. But then because he made it so big in Barcelona, I think is where the majority of modern managers sort of see that style. He then went to Munich, obviously all of that success. And that's where we saw the first proper time we saw another manager come against Pep in Klopp. It was Mourinho and Klopp, I think, were basically his villains, weren't they? And if you look at the style of football, you can almost put every manager under the same umbrella. It's Pep, it's Klopp, and then it's somewhat Mourinho, I think you can look at as inspiration for them. And I do think out of all of them, for entertainment-wise, Pep's now has become this boring, mundane. But there's so much behind it that I think other teams are copying this and not getting as effective because they haven't got all of Pep's talent. And therefore, we're seeing it more in the Premier League, definitely. And we're seeing it in other leagues, and it gets boring because too many people don't have their own full identity. There's some that are inspired by Pep, and they're the successful managers that are inspired by but have their own thing. And I think right now we can see this in Maresca, the last coach that's come away from Pep to get a manager role. And if you compare Maresca to Arteta, both playing Pep ball or Pep-inspired football, but Maresca definitely has his own identity and won the Club World Cup, obviously, only a handful of weeks ago now, with that style, but a much more exciting variant. So I do agree with the boring bit, but I think that without him, there would be such a different world of football we would be watching in the last 10, 15 years.
But I don't actually necessarily think that's a bad thing, going back to the old school football. I'm not saying kick it long and run after it in that style. I'm talking about, okay, it's different for other managers. My problem with it is it was very popular. That first iteration of it at Barcelona, it was exciting. We've never seen that in our lifetime anyway, seen that control of the ball, the way he had those players. It's the players he had. What we have to remember is that Pep's always managed financially dominant teams. He inherited that trio, those Barca players, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Messi, those lot. But then he moved on to Bayern Munich, where we know what they do. They buy the best players. They're silly rich. They control that. They dominate that league year in, year out. Before he even came there, they'd won the treble, you know. Then he's moving to Manchester City. So what it is, in my eyes, Pep, this really works. The system works because he's got technically really gifted players. They can afford those players that can play this style. My problem with it is when you get, like you said, a lot of people think Pep ball is the way to go. A lot of owners, they want to see their teams, in their eyes, playing attractive football, which they want their coaches or their managers to implement that style. Some, like you said, the Marescas of the world, certain other managers around the world, they can do that. When you've got, with no disrespect, when you've got managers like Russell Martin trying to copy this style with Southampton, you've just come into the Premier League, just been promoted. You cannot try and play Pep ball and play out at the back. Your level, your caliber of player is not ready to do that. And that's the problem with it. And then it starts, without sounding rude, his football starts looking bad because you're getting a team that hasn't got that caliber of player trying to play that style of football. Southampton became a laughing stock last season because they kept on getting caught at the back. How many goals did they concede last year from being caught at the back, trying to play out? That's the problem with it.
Yeah, I think when you look at, I think it's clear to say, and everyone would agree, that Pep Guardiola hasn't invented his football. He's been heavily inspired by people like Marcelo Bielsa in terms of the disciplinarian side of it. He played the same football as Johan Cruyff. In that structure at Barcelona when he was playing, he then played under Johan Cruyff and then was inspired as a coach by Cruyff. And that's probably because at the time that Cruyff was at Barca, they then got their success. So Pep obviously saw this football is the one that gets you the success. It was the time that Barca really started to win was under Cruyff with this sort of style. Pep's made that his own. He had to modernize it slightly. But you've already said it. Pep took over a struggling Barca team in a sense that they finished third, I think. So not struggling, really, let's be honest. Like, if you're in the top four, you're not a struggling team, are you? So, yeah, he took a struggling team, but he still took Barcelona, who had just come away from winning, I think it was the treble.
Yeah, before, yeah, and a half before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, when he's taken that team, improves it to the team that he made it, the team that we all recognise, Pep's Barcelona. Then he goes to Munich, like you say. Then he goes to City with the Saudi money coming in and brings in these players. This isn't football that's played by the smaller clubs, and the success is seen in clubs that play this football that are of a higher calibre. When Xavi went to Barcelona to manage, very much inspired by Pep's style, he's then gone to Barcelona, who were doing okay. And it's the same with Maresca at Chelsea, obviously, Arteta at Arsenal. So it isn't successful at small clubs. But I think in terms of the boring side, it's made other people have to do better because it's clearly that this way of football is very successful. Without a doubt, it's successful. We've seen it. Obviously, Pep, the amount of trophies he's won playing this football. But what that's done is then it's given like the pressure on other managers that maybe aren't playing this style to get better, improve. And we saw that City against Liverpool in terms of Jurgen Klopp, him coming out, playing a different style, a pressing football, a very attacking, and it worked. And he got the better of Pep. But it's not just him. There are other managers that are doing this sort of thing, and they're anti-Pep ball sort of, and their style works very well. I think it makes football as a whole more entertaining that it's almost like a cheat code in the successful teams, and then the other teams have to adapt to that. And it's probably going to change, and I think it will change soon. I think everyone's seen Luis Enrique's football at PSG and realised that the way they're playing at the moment is perhaps a year ahead of everyone else. And so I wouldn't be surprised if throughout this season or next season, you start seeing managers being compared to Luis Enrique, and they'll start calling it like Enrique ball, and we'll start talking about that again. And whether it's Luis Enrique or it's someone else, it will eventually happen. It has to change hands at some point. So hopefully it does, because I think that football's a lot more entertaining. But I think all it is credit to a man that's spent the last 15 years dominating European football with a tactic that is very good and very, very highly skilled, but is successful with the highly skilled players. And so, as you've already said, the smaller clubs, it's great that they're inspired by it, but take a step back and put some of your own influence in it and recognise the stature of the players, because you can't have a random DM holding the midfield and distributing a ball like Sergio Busquets did for however long he was at Barcelona doing that. The whole of his career, wasn't it? But like,
career,
I can't say that I think it's boring. I think it's slow. And I think when teams recognise what they have to do to beat Pep, it gets boring. But I think you can also say that the teams that play against Pep sometimes don't bring their own to the game. As a fan of Marco Silva, who Pep has given so much credit to in the past, Fulham go to Man City and give them no respect. We play our football. We don't sit 11 men behind the ball and just wait for them to build up. And I think that's a more entertaining game. Some clubs are happy to play Man City and they go, well, we know what works. You nullify their balls in behind by being pretty much your defensive line sits inside your own box. Then they can't play them killer balls through the back to Haaland, or what De Bruyne used to do for Pep for so long, finding space where there wasn't any. So, like, I don't think it's Pep. I think if you gave Pep free reign, it would be a very entertaining game of football. It's also the teams that would play Pep's football nullify that, because a draw against a Man City team 3 years ago was a good result. And if you were coming in as a team middle to bottom of the table, then you sit 11 men behind the ball and you nullify what you know they want to do.
Yeah. I just feel like because he was so successful with that around the world before he came to England and when he started at Manchester City, I just feel that it seems like the football world has just been brainwashed into thinking that this is how football should be played. That's the way it should be played.
I agree.
And it bothers me because as a Liverpool fan, I would, not because it's Klopp, I would 10 times watch Klopp's football over Guardiola's football. It might not be the winning football, but it's more entertaining. It's what we want to see. It's just, I just find it's too systematic. It's just the patterns of play.
I think that is 100% the issue with the Pep ball, and we see it with players. They get their creativity drained out of them, and it's no, you sit here, you have 3 responsibilities, you beat your man, you either play the ball flat to the edge of the box, and if that's not an option, turn around and recycle possession. And it's like, Jack Grealish is the key example, isn't it? That everyone talks about. Jack Grealish, this creative flair at Aston Villa, 100 million signing, and 1 season later, people say how boring he is and how he hasn't got that anymore. Well, he has still got it. Pep Guardiola didn't want that. He has a couple of players that are allowed that freedom in a whole system of 11, and that's where it gets boring, I think.
This is what I mean.
Agree with you.
That's systematic. Is that systematic? You run down a wing. I don't want you to beat your man, because basically what he's trying to do is eliminate them losing the ball. The more you try to beat a man, the less chance of you losing the ball. So you keep it, you come back, the wing gets down the wing. Grealish was stuck on the left-hand side a lot of the times. You stay there, you hold the width, and then you play it square back into your defender, your left back, so he can come forward. So it's a system that he uses, but a lot of it is that overcoaching the players. Is that for instance, you said Jack Grealish as a major. I have to look at Bernardo Silva. I saw Bernardo Silva when he was at Monaco, before he came to Manchester City, and then he was at City in his first year or two. He was that flamboyant. He played these tricky little passes through, and he drop his shoulder. He was such a diminutive little figure, and even him, I know he's aged, but he lost that creative flair, that flamboyance. That, like I said, what gets off the edge of the seat, he doesn't like those players, and it's over a couple of years he trains that. Now I'm beginning to think that. Is that why Phil Foden isn't making it in this team anymore? I found when Phil Foden first came into the team after, I don't remember, David Silva is meant to be the next coming after David Silva, taking his place. He used to come in, do tricks, beat a man, smash it into the top corner. Now, I think gradually that's been coached out of him, and he's more in that systematic type of play now. And like you said, that's to a point that's been found out. That football has been found out. City have lost their air of invincibility now. That's why teams will go there, and they're not, like you said, like Marco Silva. I respect him so much because he goes there and he goes at them. He tries to win the game. And if you realize over the last, I know you might have lost, but they've always been close games with you and City. There's always that back and forth where it's tight. You might end up winning 3-1, but there was a point where you could have gone 2-0 up, but they've somehow sneaked in. And that's
it's quality, isn't it? It's,
you know?
Yeah. That's a change in quality, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the difference in the Premier League, but that's a slightly different conversation, isn't it? But I see exactly what you're saying with the changing in the players. And I think that this is why there will be a new generation. There will be someone that inspires it. Maybe I said before, Luis Enrique, let's just say it is him. But like, we will see a change soon, I think. Pep hasn't had the success since the treble season, obviously a huge season for them. But since that moment, it's been a downward spiral for Pep and Pep ball. And I think he's been doing it so long that people have started to understand how it works. Everyone in the Premier League has played against Pep now. As you said, he's into his 7th season or 8th season now. So everyone understands it. He does change it every year. We see slight tweaks. And that's where his brain is so much better than other people football-wise, with the whole John Stones joining the midfield and the centre-backs did like inverted full-back sort of role. The sweeper keeper, Edison effectively was an 11th man on the pitch, which meant City outnumbered every team because they didn't introduce their goalkeeper. Stuff like that I enjoy, and you see that go to other managers, but I do think it's slowly getting like bled out of the game, this whole Pep copying, and I think that's exciting. Like you've already said, like we watch this for the entertainment. If we find the games boring, we're not going to watch it. Klopp football, that was entertaining. I think Slot's football's entertaining. I think Brighton under Hertzler and De Zerbi have been some of the most entertaining football. That's not Pep ball. And then I think some of the more boring games of football I've watched this season and last season has been Man City, has been Arsenal. I think I think a lot of people can agree at the moment, Arsenal have been ridiculed for being somewhat boring and almost like defensive. Well, that's a big thing of Pep's. You've already said it. If you can keep the ball for 80 minutes of the game, then the opposition only have 10 minutes to score. And so there's that idea, isn't there? Obviously, Arteta's gone for his own style, but I hope that we see no success this season from Arteta or Pep, and that could then mean possibly we drop this. Pep ball is the way to win everything because it's too far gone where it hasn't won a cup, and then we'll start seeing influence from other managers, hopefully, I think. And I think that would be the best way forward for entertainment as well.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I'm not trying to sit here, because obviously I'm pushing this forward, but I'm not trying to sit here and say Pep's not an amazing coach. Pep's an amazing coach. He's pushed that tactical innovation forward. You know, the false nine at Barca, for instance, like you said, the inverted fullbacks, these things we never saw. The hybrid centre-back that steps into midfield, John Stones-esque. We never saw those things before. So we're not trying to say that he's not an innovator. He's not he hasn't revolutionized football. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, by everyone to a point getting used to that system, and like you said, sitting 10 men behind the ball when City was dominating, it's become boring. It's become sitting there watching it. It's just like, right, so we can't get through on the right hand side. We're going to play it left to the left hand side and try and get on that side. It doesn't work. We're going to come back. Now, I want to see my winger beat a man, unpredictability, beat a man, go inside, outside, chop him in and out, whip the ball in. You're trying to find a header. If not, it gets headed out. Someone tries to smash it in. That's how I grew up watching football. And that's probably what's changed. Maybe it's a bit of nostalgia, maybe, but I find that, like I said, entertaining. You know, so no one's saying he's not he hasn't revolutionized football, because he really has. He has changed, moved that line. You know, he has moved that point. Yeah, he's taken on to another level. And some of the things, he's had some amazing ideas. The inverted fullbacks. It came to that point where he did that, 4 seasons ago, 3-4 seasons ago. All of a sudden, I'll be honest, within 3 months, Klopp did that. Started putting Trent as the inverted. Arteta's gone and bought 5 centre backs, playing them California on the inside and playing the other one on the inside as well, trying to match that, because we realise you're overloaded by having the spare man in the midfield. But remember, Pep did this way back at Bayern Munich when he bought Philip Lahm from right back. That was 10 years ago. And
Joshua Kimmich.
Philip Lahm. And Philip Lahm ended up becoming a defensive midfielder at points, you know. So, like I said, I'm not trying to kick him down. I'm just trying to say at times it has become boring and it can become too predictable football. And that's not why I watch football. You know, that's not why I want to see him. I suppose if it was just him doing it, you could think, okay, people have got used to the tactics. I think now that, like I said, people have been brainwashed. 70% of football managers trying to do that. I think that is being oversaturated with that by the same type of football. I think that's what makes it boring for me.
Yeah, I see that. I agree, but I also see the side of like watching them games where he does break a team down. Watching the good old City, I wouldn't say last season was really inspiring, but it's very entertaining when you just appreciate that side of it. But overall, I agree that it's becoming more and more boring, because in a game where it's City against a lower table, usually when it's City away from home against someone mid to lower table, you can tell exactly what's going to happen throughout the game of football, can't you? The whole 11 men behind the ball. Let's play for a draw against City. That would be the best way. Sit 2 men on Haaland. And it just, it does get boring. So I think I agree with you in terms of it's made it more boring. But I also disagree that I think without him, we wouldn't have some of the great managers that we currently have that have had to be better to beat Pep. And I think if Pep stayed at Barca, it wouldn't be the same in Germany and England, because only Spain would have had to beat Pep. So actually him coming across as inspired, like Tuchel, Simeone, Ange, Iraola, Bielsa, they've all had to play him in different times in their career. And although they might not be the best managers we've seen, but all of them have adapted to play against Pep, and I think got better. I think Jurgen Klopp as well is a massive example of that. Although he was a thorn in Liverpool's side, obviously, because you were pushing so many seasons in a row with Pep just getting one ahead. When it then happened and Liverpool won, it was like, you haven't just won the league, you've also beat Pep Guardiola, because it wasn't like he left and then you won. So you won it while that guy was there.
Football. That season we broke that domination. It felt like we saved football to a point. That's how it honestly felt to a lot of football fans. There are people that hate Liverpool that just wanted them to just beat City, so you stop that dominance. So to a point,
there is that kind of feeling, because look, if you didn't win that season and Pep won, and then Pep won, and then Pep won, well, how could there ever be an argument that if you just do what Pep does, you don't win? Do you know what I mean? So I think we've both got fair sides to the story, and I do see your point, and I do sort of think we're ready for the next generation, and I do sort of hope it is sort of like Luis Enrique, who is inspired by Pep, but it's like very vertical, more risk taking. It's a bit more exciting, and we saw that throughout the Champions League, and we saw that at the Club World Cup. It's just a bit more exciting. So I hope that is somewhat coming into it, and I think there's a lot more younger players that look more entertaining, beating players, wingers. There's a lot more exciting midfielders coming up through the ranks, a couple of them at PSG. But I think that we're going to maybe see a change over the next couple of years, hopefully. That'd be fun. That'd be good to see who's the next one.
Yeah, it seems like we might be passing that stage of football, like you said. I think they see, like, for instance, Josh King, the 10s are starting to come back into football, where everyone was playing that 4-3 solid, 2 wide inside forwards and 1 striker up front. I think that's changing now.
Yeah.
Like we talked about Josh King. People are going Liverpool, for instance, Wirtz. We're going Musiala. They're going more of that 10 to have that more attacking, creative mind in there, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And that's you can literally see that from Pep at Barcelona, where the 10 slowly got driven out of football.
Yeah.
Ronaldinho.
And it became that 9. It became that false 9 doing the 10 role as well, as in like a David Villa, you know?
Yeah, and we saw that. We saw the 10s disappear. We saw the false 9, or we saw that that three in midfield with the holding, literally Pep at Barcelona, like you can see it. Ronaldinho leaving, Kaká slowly disappearing off into the ether, but like all of them players disappearing, and then you saw DMs making a rise in football. Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or, I think, is the prime example for that. A DM won the Ballon d'Or, not a number 10. So maybe we're coming back into it. Yeah.
Well, just to summarise that, Pep hasn't ruined football. He's basically reshaped football, if you want to look at it that way, you know. If you want to value unpredictability and chaos, then you're going to dislike Pep's philosophy. If you like tactical sophistication and technical brilliance, then you'll have to view him as a revolutionary of the game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it all depends on your footballing taste. You know, it depends on what you want to see. Do you want to see that flamboyance? Do you want to see that flair? Or sometimes, is it just winning football? I said to a pal a few days ago of mine, he's an Arsenal fan, I said, Arsenal not fun to watch. And he said to me, a few years ago, they were fun to watch and they were nearly winning. He says, if it comes to it now and they're not fun to watch, but they win the title, he'd be happy with that.
Yep.
So it just shows you, it depends on what is it there for? What are you trying to do here? You're trying to win. Most of us, we want both. I'm a Liverpool fan. I want both. I want to be entertained and I want to be successful. Pep's obviously done both in his time.
Yeah, exactly. I can agree more.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that, Lee. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yep. Cheers. See you on the next one.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining. Like and subscribe. And I appreciate you viewing. Speak to you soon.